Hey everybody, and welcome to this edition of rapidMATION Live. And for those of you who may not have joined us before, here at rapidMATION Live, we stream all things intelligent automation. And we do that across two different channels, that's LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. And we talk about content in four different categories. That could be interviews, demos, deep dives, or the ability for you, the audience, to ask a question. And in rapidMATION Live, we cover a range of different topics, and this ranges from workflow automation to robotic process automation to artificial intelligence and so much more. Most importantly, please subscribe to rapidMATION Live so you know when we go live, and you can do so by heading over to go.rapidmation.com/live. Today, we're going to be chatting about building a fantasy sports newsletter using robotic process automation. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey everyone, and today we welcome David Kroll to the show. David is currently the lead solutions engineer at a company called Ashling Partners. David and I used to be colleagues when we both worked at a company called K2, albeit on the very opposite sides of the world to each other. And funny enough, I'm sitting down in Australia and he's sitting in the US today. So I'm extremely excited for David to join us today, and we'll be speaking all things intelligent automation. So David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit about soccer or football, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, David, just to get started, tell us a little bit more about Ashling Partners and what a typical day in the life of the lead solutions engineer looks like.
Yeah. So Ashling Partners, it's an intelligent automation firm based out of Chicago, but we really cover, the whole country, the whole states over here. The whole idea is we combine we call them the 4 A's of Ashling, which includes advisory, automation, analytics, and artificial intelligence. And the idea here is that we can use these different capabilities to really inject new life into struggling processes and more menial issues that you may be burdened with.
Yeah, awesome. I love that, the 4 A's, right? And I know I connected with some of the owners of Ashling way back when at UiPath Forward, some great guys. So it's been fun following your guys' journey from this side of the world. And I know we'll get into some other things that have happened recently, but really, really good, right? So just before we jumped on, you were telling me a bit about you were having a crazy day. Tell me what generally happens in the lead solution engineer's day. What do you come across?
Yeah, so one part of it is really diving into thought leadership and trying to get ahead of the different stories that are happening in our industry and being able to kind of connect to the different technology that's being created and implemented. One of the beautiful things about being a UiPath partner, as you well know, is just how often new features arrive. And so we're kind of on the cutting edge, if you will, of those new features, making a lot of effort into analyzing what those features are and how they can potentially be applied to save time and money, or just win your fantasy sports league, as I've done in my previous blog post. So.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I always use the analogy. It's like being a kid on Christmas Day with UiPath. There's always something new and shiny coming out of the box to play with. So it leads to never a dull day in the world of intelligent automation. And that's what I love about it, right? No day's ever the same. We get to use some of this amazing technology to continually deliver beyond expectations for our customers. So talking about, yeah.
Well, I was going to say on the other side of the fence, we also help a lot with new clients that are investigating some of those, opportunities themselves. And that really falls into that advisory A that we talked about earlier, just, having those conversations with them, identifying the types of processes that they are having trouble with and seeing what technology is out there and kind of being their technology advisors, helping them succeed and get over those hurdles. So that's kind of the breakdown of the position.
Yeah, brilliant, right? And such an important piece, that advisory. I mean, nowadays, there's certainly no shortage of technology out there, right? There's lots of different things that do different pieces and help in the automation space, but I know that certainly many of your customers would find immense value in that. Okay, but one of our other shared passions is the wonderful world of sport, right? And I know that you're an avid Manchester United supporter.
Absolutely.
So First up, it's been an amazing start to the English Premier League, and it really looks like it's going to be an absolutely cracking season. Give us your prediction of top four. Who's going to finish where in the top four?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's going to be so hard this year. I'm such a huge United fan, but I don't know if they're going to do it this season. After I see some of the stuff that Lukaku's doing over at Chelsea, but at the same time, I think if there's going to be a year to get behind him and back him for the title, it's going to be this season. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Manchester United number one. And of course, I think we're going to see Chelsea at number two, City at three, and Liverpool at four, just because, we got to put Liverpool fourth.
Maybe we could put Liverpool at 14. That'd be a good place to start.
Well, now that they have Van Dijk back, I think it's going to be a much more competitive title challenge this year from them.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, we might have to do a follow-up session at the end of the season and see how your predictions came out, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah. So outside of the real thing, I know that you're also a lover of fantasy sports, right? So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I fell into fantasy soccer about 5 or 6 years ago. One of my old high school friends invited me to his league, and I had done some of the I would say more simple versions of fantasy soccer in the past, where it's basically go out, pick a team. Everyone can have the same players, but you're trying to kind of assemble a team within a given salary budget. And it was fun, but it was kind of, I didn't like it as much because, you both could have Harry Kane. You could, it was just, trying to get the total amount of points in the league, which to me wasn't as much fun. And we couldn't talk as much smack to all of the other people that we were playing against. So I joined, I would say, a more hardcore league where everything was tracked much more specifically. So for anyone listening in the States, if you're a member of like a NFL fantasy league, it's much more similar to that style where every pass almost, well, I should say every blocked shot to every shot taken, every, interception, aerial win, all that stuff is tracked. And that actually is going to get into, some of the stuff we're going to talk about later on with this automation that we built to kind of help accelerate one of the things I was trying to do for that league. But it takes up so much time. It really does, and especially if you're a league commissioner or you're running the show.
Yeah.
You want to keep people engaged in your season. It's really easy to, especially when certain folks don't do as well, for them to kind of lose interest early on and fall off. And one of my hopes was that I could kind of create this newsletter that would keep bringing people back in. And they'd always, even if they had lost 4 games in a row, if they beat the top team, they knew they were going to get a cool paragraph in that newsletter where they were like, the David versus Goliath, right? The top of the Titan, so to speak.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what that's all about.
Absolutely love it, right? And so you obviously love playing fantasy sports, but I guess what you didn't love about it was the tedious, mundane, and repetitive work that was involved with drafting and then sending out your newsletter, right? So I can certainly understand that, right? So tell us a little bit more about what that led you to doing.
Oh, yes. So, I mean, it was actually about a year and a half ago that I started to create these newsletters. And I had so much fun. And, the passion of it kind of kept me going because I enjoyed it so much. I didn't really mind doing the work. Well, that passion certainly faded after about the 5th newsletter. And I realized that I was spending an hour and a half of my spare time putting these things together. It's a thing where, when you send out the newsletter, it's not just the paragraph of how the teams did, it's a statistical comparison. You're having to track all the different players and how they've performed, and you're looking at who's beaten who and who has more points than the other team, and you're constantly looking for these data trends. And I found that, as I would go into it, as a technologist, in the back of my head, I was kind of almost judging myself, like, okay, you're getting up in front of people and you're telling them that they can automate all their problems away. And you're sitting here dealing with this problem and you're not going to automate it. It was basically almost like an internal challenge to myself. Like, if I'm going to get up in front of people and tell them that these automative technologies actually work, and I can't apply it for one of my more simple scenarios, then, what kind of technologist am I?
Yeah, absolutely right. So I love that, right? And I love how you've combined your passion for technology and sport to solve a personal challenge that you had, right? So take us through the journey of how you use robotic process automation to solve this challenge and save you time.
Yeah, so for me, step one was how do I get the data, right? And that's often kind of the first challenge in any of our services projects is how do I get the data and how do I structure the data? And so what I did was I was able to, log into the Fantrax website. I was able to find some convenient screens that they had created that structured out the data into tables on the web page, and that allows, of course, UiPath to look at that and structure it out into its own table, which we can then bring into Studio and manipulate and do all our wonderful things too. So that was kind of part one was I decided to start small, right? That was the key. And I started with, I just want to know who beat who and by
Yeah.
how many points. And so that was step one. And this idea to do it came to me on a Sunday night. My parents were actually visiting, and I snuck away. I went off into my computer room and I just started working on this. And before I knew it, an hour or so had passed, but I did it. It was working, and I felt really, really good about it because I was like, wow, if I can bring in these scores, I wonder what else I can do. And I started to think about, well, what is something that I really wanted to do that I hadn't had a chance to do yet at Ashling? And it was, well, I wanted to generate a document. I wanted to create a document with some of the data that I was working with. Typically, and the business of this, you're often doing what the clients want to see.
Yeah.
But you don't always, you might get rusty on the stuff that they don't want to see, even though it's really important. And one of the things that I always valued from my time at K2 is the ability to automatically create documents based off of some data. So I wanted to do that. And so I had done some things in the past where I'd structured out templates, document templates, if you will. And I used other companies to do this in the past. I think you probably heard of DocFusion and used them maybe. I think there's some other companies out there. Hot Docs, I think in the past was a big one, but we used their technologies to kind of set up these document templates and populate them. But that was really where I wanted to go next. I wanted to generate a document, fill it with all the data that I had from this website. And so I put together the table, and I found that it was going to be a little bit more challenging than I first expected. I was having to kind of mentally keep track of a lot of different structured tables and arrays as I was going through and putting it together. But I did manage to make some good progress on it. And it's so funny. I got it working for game week 1, and I was so excited, and I bragged to the world. I told everybody that I had done this amazing thing. And then week 2, it broke,
Oh,
which just shows you have to build things in the correct way. And it's really important to work with companies and people that know the right way to build these automations, because even if they work for that first push, do they continue to work for the next 6 months? And so I talked to a few of my architect and developer friends, and they kind of walked me through what they would do. I made those changes, and it worked great for game week 2. I ran it again on game week 3, and everything is rock solid. So very, very excited to have a working report generator, if you will. All I have to do, and I just do it now every Tuesday, I just walk in, I push a button, and I get my report. I was even telling myself, maybe I should just schedule this thing.
awesome.
Schedule it, put the report into, like a forum post on the website and just submit it. I haven't yet gotten to that level, but I think that would be really cool to do next.
Yeah, absolutely awesome, right? And I loved how kind of you evolved through that stage, right? I often see that with customers, how I think your approach, starting with the data and then moving on to there to stuff like DocGen. And funny enough, we're doing a lot of projects with DocFusion at the moment as well, where we're generating documents. So it's just awesome to see how those different pieces of the puzzle come together. And in this scenario, kind of create your automatic or your automation around fantasy sports, absolutely brilliant, right? So we often say to our customers, don't hate it, automate it. And this is an amazing example of how you've drunk your own automation champagne, as we call it, right? So we never say you eat your own dog food. We say you drunk your own champagne and you automated this tedious, mundane, repetitive task. So now that you've managed to automate this task, what have you managed to do with the extra time that you've got?
Well, I'm working out again. Which I wasn't really doing that when I first created this, but I'm finally getting outside a little bit. I'm getting a little sun. I'm not necessarily running outside. I'm running on a treadmill because it's a little too hot to run in the sun, but I'm sure I'll do that as soon as I can. But I know it's a bit cliche to say I'm exercising and I'm taking care of myself, but like if I get time back, just due to the nature of the work that we do, we're always kind of tirelessly chasing the goals that our clients put in front of us. And so whenever I get some time to take care of myself or to spend some more time with my family, I'm always taking advantage of that.
Yeah, awesome, right? And that's the promise of intelligent automation, freeing up our time as humans to perform that higher value work, or in this case, freeing up your time to enjoy things that you love doing. And that's spending time with your family, taking some mental breaks, getting outside, all of those wonderful things, right? So now that you've been running this automation for a while, right? You might already have a list of enhancements or things that you think you can do to this automation. Give us some ideas of what's next on the roadmap.
Yeah, so kind of what I had mentioned a little bit earlier. The right now I'm going over and I'm pushing a button, and when I push the button, it builds my Word document. And there's still some steps I have to take. I have to copy the Word document and then paste it into the forum post on the Fantrax website. I think that's a super easy thing that I could do next. Just basically open up the document, run as Control-C, Control-V, hotkey, and just paste it into the forum post. And actually, the way Fantrax is set up, it actually accepts that quite well, which is nice. And then going through and titling the forum post and maybe using my variables to feed it and make sure that is for the specific game week. Maybe even include the tagline on there. That would be kind of cool. I'd love to get it scheduled, running without me even having to touch it. I just think that would be so cool. The challenge for me right now is I'm on UiPath Community Edition, so getting out to I just want to make sure my orchestrator environment is up and running so that I can support that, because orchestrator is going to be the tool that allows me to do that.
Yeah, well, awesome, right? And yeah, so I think there's so many things when I came across your blog post and I saw it. I mean, the other idea that I had was obviously you could tie in machine learning or artificial intelligence into prediction algorithms, right? To figure out, hey, well, let's take all previous data, see who's playing at home and away, and see how that might feed in, right? Or one of the other things you touched on is kind of resilient workflows. And I know often we use UiPath test automation to carry on kind of figuring out how that workflow is running, has anything changed? And if something has changed, alert someone, or just make sure that workflow process is really resilient in terms of the way that it runs. So yeah, I think there's a huge roadmap for you, and we cannot wait to see that story unfold. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for inviting me to talk. It's always good to talk automation and to hear what everyone else is doing out there. Yeah, I'm always looking forward to having those conversations.
Yeah, but just before we leave, I mean, I know there's been some other exciting news at Ashling Partners. Tell us a little bit more about what's been happening in your world.
Yeah, so Ashling just recently had a merger with Machina RPA. Which was really a fantastic intelligent automation company that was very similar to us in terms of culture and style, but they were very focused on the energy sector, if you will. And so they bring a ton of vertical expertise in that space. I've had the joy of already meeting them and talking to them, and I just can't wait to talk with them and their technical team as well and learn what they've done. I love it because it's like a mind meld, right? Everybody gets together and they share their cool techniques, and it's just an opportunity to really take what we both have done separately and bring it together, not just for our own personal careers, but also for our clients.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a very exciting partnership, and we'll be cheering you guys on from the sidelines. We look forward to following that journey and see how that unfolds from this side of the world.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now on to my favorite part. We call it the hot seat, right? So the hot seat is where we fire off quick questions to you and we get some of your answers, right?
All right, let's go.
All right. So David, first one is, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I wanted to be an astronaut, but I quickly learned that my fear of heights and my motion sickness were going to prevent that from ever becoming a reality.
I hear you on the fear of heights. I've jumped out of airplanes. I've done everything, but it still hasn't eliminated my fear of heights. I certainly hear you on that one. Okay, next up, what is something on your bucket list that you have actually done?
Wow. Wait, something that like was previously on my bucket list that
Yeah,
I've
that
done.
you managed to
So,
tickle.
so this is going to sound kind of stupid, but I'm just going to say it. I have that fear of heights,
Yeah.
and I challenged myself to ride roller coasters with my friend. It had been years since I had ridden a real roller coaster, and I got on one. I rode it. I was over at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. I just had a great time. They have since deconstructed the ride, but they've built something bigger in its place. So I'm sure that that will be the next challenge someday.
Oh, awesome. All right, and let me ask the opposite of that question. So what's something that's on your bucket list that you're yet to do?
I need to go see Manchester United play. Now that Ronaldo is actually back, I want to go over to Europe and watch them play, either like a Champions League game or maybe a derby match against Man City. I would love that. That'd be so much fun. I'm gonna find time and I'm gonna do it.
Listen, perhaps I need to meet you there for a business meeting halfway. We'll chat all things intelligent automation.
There we go. I'll just have to go talk to Don and Marshall about that. I'm sure we'll set something right up.
Beautiful. All right, next up, what are you reading at the moment? And this could be something that you're reading at the moment, or maybe a book that you've read that's had kind of a profound impact on your life. Tell us a bit more about that.
Gosh, now that I think about it, it's been a while since I've actually sat down and read like an actual like novel. I read a lot of kind of epics and fantasy books and things of that nature. I'm a big Brandon Sanderson fan, and everything on that line of thought in terms of like the way. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's The Way of Kings. I could have
Yeah.
that one wrong, but I usually just throw that on my headphones while I'm on the plane or whatnot and listen to it. But in terms of the technical stuff, like staying on top of the new technology, it's going to sound kind of dorky, but I actually love reading release notes. I get like really excited, maybe oddly excited when, like, for example, UiPath comes out with their newest release notes, because it's like, okay, what are the new toys that I get to play with today?
Yeah.
And I just love diving into it. So hopefully that satisfies the question, but if not, oh
No.
well.
Brilliant, brilliant, awesome. All right, and last but not least, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the person that helps someone overcome their problems and doesn't really sit up in front of you and tell you, here's what it could be, right? But have the integrity to follow through on it. So one of the things I've seen a lot, maybe over the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years or whatnot, is a lot of product companies, they'll get up in front of, the prospects or the clients, and they'll tell them all the wonderful things that their product can do. But then when push comes to shove and they actually have to make it happen, a lot of times it's after the client spent some money. There's not a lot of follow through there. And so it's one reason that I'm really, really excited to work for a services company, is because I do make promises, but I know that I have this incredible team behind me that can follow through and can build what I'm promising, within reason, right?
Yeah.
And also they're there to smack me with a stick if I say we can do something that we can't do, which is always good. It's good to
Yeah.
have that honesty. But I think it's, I want to be remembered for having integrity. And that's just more, when we think business, right? But also, I want to have integrity in my personal life too, right? And just want to be the honest Joe, if you will.
Yeah.
That people enjoy talking to, and they know they're going to get straight. They know they're going to get it straight from me.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think that's brilliant, and it's a brilliant way to end off. And I know I certainly feel that. And I want to thank you for joining us today, sharing your awesome story. So that's brilliant. But just before we say goodbye, are there any parting thoughts or comments you'd like to leave the viewers and listeners with?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is if there's ever an opportunity for us to do something together, whether it's a presentation or an event or something like that, we'd love to work with you. I'd be happy to maybe cook up some different ideas and see what we can do maybe at the next conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be awesome. So David, thanks so much for joining us today. And all I can say is come on, Manchester United. I look forward to seeing you at Old Trafford in Manchester. So we hope to get together soon.
Awesome. Glory, glory, Man United. Let's go.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks, David. We speak soon.
Thanks, Sean. Take care. Bye-bye.
What an awesome session that was, and to be able to see how we can use robotic process automation in real world applications in a personal capacity. So certainly a great one, and some great food for thought there on how we might be able to use robotic process automation. If you'd like to get started or have a chat about robotic process automation, drop us a note at hello@rapidMATION.com. And don't forget to subscribe to know when we go live, and you can do so at go.rapidmation.com/live.